Please join us every week for a new episode of Understanding the Human Condition with Dr. James Flowers. Dr. Flowers and his most admired mentors, respected colleagues, and VIP guests will share valuable insight into underlying health causes, conditions, and issues. These in-depth yet approachable episodes are a great resource for both private individuals and industry professionals. Our esteemed host, Dr. James Flowers, is one of the most recognized and respected names in the field of chronic pain, mental health, and substance use disorders, both nationally and internationally. Dr. Flowers is the founder of J. Flowers Health Institute, located in Houston, Texas. For more information about J. Flowers Health Institute and its concierge services, go to jflowershealth.com or dial 713-783-6655. And be sure to mention this podcast.
Welcome, everyone, to Understanding the Human Condition with Dr. James Flowers.
Hey, Robin.
How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm really good. Episode 3.
I'm so excited about our guest today.
Yeah, I am too. You want to announce him?
Sure, absolutely. So Manny Rodriguez is not only one of my very, very, very best friends, but a colleague and someone in the treatment center industry that I really look up to, and we kind of mentor each other really almost on a daily basis. We have coffee almost every morning. He's in Los Angeles, I'm in Houston, and we have a cup of coffee early in the morning and talk about our day and what is on our agendas and any difficulties we're having. And just, Manny, thank you for the relationship, and you're an amazing human being. But what I'd love to do is just tell everybody a little bit about you. So Manny Rodriguez is a thought leader in the Lgbtq addiction treatment field. I say he is the leader. He is a treatment center owner of La Fuente Hollywood Treatment Center. He's a fierce advocate for families. He's a community activist that I look up to, and he's the producer of relevant media and a true visionary. Born and raised in Paterson, New Jersey, home of Hamilton, to Puerto Rican parents, he is the 10th of 11 children in his home. That's always fun to talk to Manny about, is all of his siblings. Attracted to the arts as a child, Manny discovered love, success, and scholarship in dance. He received a BFA in dance from the world-renowned the Juilliard School in New York City, which is amazing. He toured the world extensively with Ballet Hispanico of New York, Paul Taylor American Modern Dance, and Compagnie Atlantique in France. That is so amazing, Manny. Very cool.
Okay.
Afterwards, Manny moved to Hollywood. He held many different positions, from dance to nightclub promoter. Manny and I have had a ton of conversation about his nightclub promotions, and he said, I do this, I won't do a promotion for less than this certain budget, and I can just imagine some of the promotions and nightclub scenes that Manny promoted back in the day. And in 1993, he entered his own recovery. And in 1997, he became the director of promotions and marketing at GameWorks, a startup and subsidiary of Universal, DreamWorks, and Sega. Here he discovered his business talent. Today, Manny serves as the founder and CEO of La Fuente Hollywood Treatment Center. La Fuente Hollywood Treatment Center is an intimate, specialized, community-driven program with the mission to heal, strengthen, and advance the lives of LGBTQ people seeking recovery. Additionally, he produces LGBTQ educational materials and video content specific to the addiction treatment world. He has served on the boards of the Gay and Lesbian Elder Housing, the Hollywood Studio District Neighborhood Council, co-chair of the Hollywood Chamber of Commerce Health and Wellness Committee, and Manny continues to lead the La Fuente fundraising efforts for the Los Angeles LGBTQ Center's youth programs and services, as well as the Van Ness Recovery House. So welcome, Manny Rodriguez, to the show. You are an amazing friend and mentor of mine.
Hi, Manny.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I'm curious how the two of you met and your journey there to meeting each other and beyond.
Yeah. Manny, you want to run with
Sure.
that?
Yeah, I can run with that. So I met Dr. Flowers, James. I don't know how I should address him on this wonderful broadcast. And before I even get into that, number one is congratulations on this podcast that you're doing. Thank you for inviting me. It's a privilege, really, to be invited and be amongst such incredibly talented and inspiring people. So thank you for that. Getting back to the question, I met Dr. Flowers at a luncheon in Palm Springs at we were attending an LGBTQ conference that was being put on by a treatment center. And I hosted a lunch with a woman by the name of Susan Moffett, who works in our space and who is amazing. And Dr. Flowers was at this lunch.
What year?
This was 5 years ago,
Yeah, 5 years ago, 5, 6 years ago.
5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah.
And he sat on the other side of the room. He introduced himself, and I wanted to go over and speak to him and meet him. But when the lunch was over, he was gone. So I thought to myself, okay, this guy ate and ran, right? That was the first thing that, he ate and ran.
It's called dine and dash.
Yeah, he dined and then dashed.
Before the bill came.
Anyway, but as fate would have it, we were brought together through someone who ended up who still works for J. Flowers Institute, and I think a lot of James's efforts in the space, Leonard. And it was like immediate. I think we had one dinner where you were in LA for something. And I remember we went to, was it Nobu?
It was Nobu. Yeah, West Hollywood.
It was Nobu. And I remember parking on Melrose Avenue because when I came back, I had a ticket.
Yep.
And I remember, but it was instant. And I think the real magic, I think what makes that really special was that I've been working in the treatment space probably about 5 or 6 years at that point. I've been working in transitional housing, sober living, sober environment. A lot of people know it as very different things. Right. And I hadn't really met anyone who, I had this connection with and who I felt I could trust. And Dr. Flowers sort of made that available to me without that even being spoken. And then I just started reaching out to him, and it was just this relationship that was super organic in how it happened. And it wasn't about, what do you have for me or what do I have for you? It was just this genuine, what I believe was a real interest in what we were each doing and how we could support each other. So that's really how that happened. And I think over the years, I've always gone to James to help me work through ideas or problems that, alone in my own thinking, I probably shouldn't try to solve on my own. So he's been a mentor to me.
So. Well, and likewise, it's been very, very, very mutual. And as Manny said, we've been in this field, long enough to know so many people around the United States, and Manny is just someone in this field that is authentic, is just so ethical and real and down to earth, and really lives what he preaches to the clients at La Fuente Hollywood Treatment Center and to the LGBT community. And Manny, you're such a community activist, and I look up to that, and I strive to be what you are in that community activism that you do. And so why don't you share, Manny, just a little bit, if you don't mind, about your story of recovery and success at La Fuente or in your career?
Or in my career. So, okay, so in terms of like my own recovery, I got sober in August of 1993. So this year I will be celebrating 27 years in recovery, which I really believe is one of the greatest things that ever happened. It is by far the greatest thing that ever happened. I've had some really cool things happen in my life. I've been given enormous opportunities, and I blew a lot of those as well. But I think recovery is by far the greatest gift that I was given. So I'm so grateful for it. I didn't go to treatment, so I had no idea what treatment was, and how I ended up working in treatment. I don't question it anymore. I try to tell my story so that it's not that it feels authentic, because I don't want to create a perception about something that isn't so. I ended up working in treatment as just sort of like just taking the next step and doing what was right in front of me. After, working in a corporate job for 5 years, I was trying to find myself. That job started in LA, and then I moved to Miami for that job, and then that job ended and I came back here. And so I was trying to find out what it was that I was supposed to be doing. I thought it was one thing, but the universe always has a funny way of saying no to you here, and then it puts you here, and you're like, I don't really want to be here, right? And the universe is saying, no, you're supposed to be here. So I didn't know that at the time. I just felt like, oh my God, nobody wants to hire me, nobody likes me, and put aside that 9/11 had just happened, and we were really in a different time. So what happened was I opened a sober living, and that was really as a result of looking around the Hollywood area and seeing that there really wasn't a sober living that could meet the needs of a very specific LGBTQ person, right? It wasn't that there weren't sober livings, but they weren't right in the heart of Hollywood. And I really believed in Hollywood. I knew Hollywood would have a comeback, that there would be a renaissance, there was great history there, and that it was a mecca for recovery. So I opened this sober living. I had this other job called selling houses. So I kept doing this other job and running this sober living with the help of some people. And people were always putting in my ear, you should open a treatment center. Why don't you just turn this into a treatment center? And it went in this ear and it would come out of that ear, just simply because I had no idea what running a treatment center meant.
Sure.
And then there was a treatment center a mile away from us that was LGBTQ, primarily 21 beds, and it closed within, I think there was conversations that it would close, and then it closed. And I really hadn't paid any attention to it. I just knew a few people that maybe were going to buy it, and I was really just invested in running sober living and doing my other job. And then I don't know, I was walking or I don't exactly know when the moment was, but I stopped and I thought, and this was after they had already closed, and it was maybe a few months later, and I stopped and I thought, I wonder if there's a need for a sober living that really caters to, I didn't even think LGBTQ, so let me correct that. I just thought, is there space for a program in Hollywood? And I ran it past a few people and they said yes. And so I just started speaking to people. I hired a consultant. I learned as much as I could, as quick as I could. I rubbed 2 nickels together and I prayed and I said, okay, I'm gonna just try this. And we're licensed. I literally was learning as I was going. I had no idea what a clinician did. I had no idea what a treatment plan was. I knew zero.
You knew there was a need.
My gut told me, at some point it became clear to me, there's a need, and we had run an extremely successful sober living, and it was a real gift to the community, and we had so many great outcomes from it that I thought, well, it can't be that much more difficult. Well,
what year are you on right now? As you're you're talking about what year are you at in your life at that point?
You mean in my recovery?
No. Thinking about purchasing it. Were you having this thought
the sober living opened in 2005.
Okay.
And so we did that for 6 years. In 2011, we became licensed, and it was gender specific, so it was men only. There wasn't, the word LGBTQ was nowhere to be found on our website, anywhere. And it was intentional just simply because I thought, well, I don't really want to be that specific, and I don't want to pigeonhole myself. And but there was always this wandering, and then this unease when you know, because ultimately who ended up coming were primarily gay men. And then we would always, from time to time, get a heterosexual man, and it was always trying to manage, well, how do you do this with a heterosexual man coming into a primarily a treatment center that's populated primarily by gay men? And not that it was ever a problem, but there was always this unease. And it became clear to me that, I didn't even come up with this. One of my clinicians, in a very sort of informal conversation, said, I think you really should focus on the LGBTQ community. And I just was like, why? And she was like, well, that's who's showing up here. And I thought, okay, well, let me think about that. And I did. And one of the things that I got to really investigate in all of that was that I had my own internalized homophobia around owning a business that would be LGBTQ. And it was more financially driven than I think it was really not being out. Everyone knew I was gay. Everyone knew my story to some degree. But there was a homophobia about the business part. However, I think it became very clear to me that it was the right thing to do. And I looked around at who else was doing this. And at that point, there really was one private pay insurance-based program in the country that was really LGBTQ. Now, they existed, but they were more like publicly funded, social models. And so I said, okay, I'm going to just dedicate my life to focusing on working with the LGBTQ population. And I thought, oh, this will be a slam dunk, right? No. And I would say that I think we've come to I think that we finally, and I don't want to say we arrived, but I think that the idea and the effort behind what we've been trying to do has finally been matched with people trusting what we do, the work, the clinicians that are there. And I also know, and James can attest to this, is that once I made that decision, I didn't question it. Right. People would say, well, maybe you should open. And I was like, no, we're going to stick to this. We're staying in this lane. We're not moving out of this lane. I'm not going to try and serve this population and another population. I really believe there's a space just for this. And if we focus on doing great work and really learn more about our community, we will be successful.
And
I think that's what's happening.
That really became part of your mission as well at La Fuente Hollywood Treatment Center, is community-driven treatment. Why don't you talk just a little bit about the mission of La Fuente? Right. So, whenever I talk about community-driven, I always have to include the other two things. So La Fuente is an intimate, specialized, and community-driven treatment program. It's intimate because we're a smaller program, and I'm a really big fan of smaller programs, just simply because I believe that mental health and behavioral health and addiction treatment is something that is an extremely serious condition. And not that the bigger programs can't accomplish this, but I think that when you have more of an intimate setting, I think that you can just do better work. I think that there is an opportunity to really dive in and give people the attention and the care that they need, that I'm not so sure that in a treatment center that has 100 people, you may get that. It's possible. People go there and they do get sober. Yeah. And so we're intimate, and our work is extremely hands-on. It's really individualized treatment planning, et cetera. Specific because we work with the LGBTQ's treatment community. And then community-driven because I am a real believer that without community, people cannot stay sober long-term. They just can't. Right. Addiction
in particular is a disease of loneliness. And so community is such an important part of our treatment goals, our treatment planning, and our follow-up. And the way that it plays out at La Fuente is that, and right now we're in the world of COVID, but we have an in-house meeting that is attended by people who live in our community as well as our alumni. And our clients, as soon as they come into treatment, they're meeting these people. They're being mirrored. And, clinically, we know that that's just better, just simply because they respond better to treatment. They see themselves. We start introducing them to the community immediately. Of course, we have to protect them, based on our license and HIPAA, et cetera. And then when they leave treatment, we step them down. They don't have to go to our aftercare, but they have the ability to do that. And as soon as they're done with their aftercare services, our alumni program is so strong.
And I can attest to that, because I just want to jump in and say, I try to get out to LA twice a month or so, and I always want to be there on a Wednesday night, because at La Fuente Hollywood, they have their alumni open AA meeting. And it is amazing to show up with Manny or go visit Manny on a Wednesday night at La Fuente Hollywood Treatment Center, because what do you have, 100 alumni at a big open meeting, and the residents in treatment, and it's just this very powerful meeting of people in recovery that are working a program and in recovery, and then your residents there as well. Right.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Yes, and so what we attempt to do, and I think that it's been extremely successful, because we have a very successful community program and we have great results. I mean, getting people to follow the prescription after they leave treatment and sober living and aftercare, it's not always easy. The addicted mind is the mind that tells itself a different story, right, than the one that's really there. And so getting them to follow the prescription sometimes can be challenging, but we work really hard on that. The other piece of the community-driven belief is that with our alumni in particular, but our clients that are in treatment get to witness this as well. And this is really where we do our work with the other programs, whether it be the Van Ness House, where we do things right within our facility that help either raise money for the Van Ness House, or we do a gift drive during Christmas. And we get our alumni really involved so that they realize that it's not just about us, that we live in a community of people that have needs, and that we need to try and help fill those needs. We work with the Los Angeles LGBT Center, their youth program, their homeless program. 60% of all the homeless youth on the streets of Hollywood are LGBTQ.
Yeah.
Well, on that subject, okay, sorry.
No, I just wanted to say real quickly, and Robin, we'll get right back to that in just a second. But what I wanted you to talk about also, Manny, is let's talk about meth and the gay culture.
Sure. So methamphetamine, which is a drug that's been around for decades and decades and decades, and it was used, I think, in times of war just to help people stay up, so they wouldn't get killed, is a drug that is very popular among gay men in particular. It's not exclusive to gay men, but if you look at the LGBTQ population, again, gay men aren't the only ones using this drug. I think trans women will use this drug too, especially trans women who may be sex workers and don't, who work on their own and need to stay alert while they're working. But gay men, which, and gay white men, although that is really changing as well, we've really seen an increase in people of color, African Americans as well, come through our doors. What methamphetamine does is a drug, right? The effects produced by methamphetamine is that they completely change how we feel in a way that dismisses all the shame that we carry about ourselves for a lifetime. And it's very addictive just simply because it feels so good that sex becomes intertwined. It becomes an accessory behavior of using this drug. And so we work a lot. We work a lot with methamphetamine clients. I would say it's probably the bulk of the work that we do. One of the things that, and the reason why the drug works so well is because what it does is that it rushes. Where if you have say a cookie, right, or you have an orgasm, your brain is going to release about, let's say 100 units. That's probably not correct in terms of the size. 100 units of dopamine, and that's that thing they go, that tastes so good. It tastes so good. When you use meth, it releases like 1,200 times of that. So the feeling is so
overwhelmingly positive,
overwhelming,
euphoric.
And so all this stuff that you've been carrying for, whether it's internalized homophobia or shame,
trauma,
or not feeling validated, it just like everything feels good, right? And so, but it's also, it really screws up the chemistry in your brain, and so getting the brain to heal takes quite some time. And it's one of those areas that we, even pharmacology needs to get better at really providing medications that can really help with reducing the cravings, primarily reducing the cravings and really helping with the withdrawal, because they always say, well, there's no withdrawal with amphetamines or stimulants, and we know that that's not true.
It's just not true. Yeah.
So,
I found something online that I read to Dr. Flowers today, and I wanted to read it to both of you now, if I may, and get your take on this. According to the SAMHSA, the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, 20 to 30% of the gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgender population are substance abusers. This higher than average rate of addiction can be attributed to a variety of factors. The physical, along with the emotional and mental health issues related to addiction, are complicated by additional issues related being in the LGBT community, which is often targeted with homophobia, suspicion, and even violence. Addiction issues will continue to worsen without intensive specialized treatment, in turn further damaging your sense of self, mental health, and physical being. It is crucial to find a rehab center experienced in managing your specific concerns regarding LGBT issues in addition to your drug or alcohol addiction.
And Robin, that's exactly why choosing La Fuente Hollywood Treatment Center specifically for the LGBTQ plus community is so important. Manny, why don't you address that? Why is it important to our audience to choose a program that specializes in the LGBTQ community for that population rather than a generalized program in the general population?
Right. Thank you for the question. And Robin, thank you for reading that. You need to copy and paste it and send it to me when you have a moment.
Sure.
And you know what, I am very familiar with these statistics, right? Because I would say that it's anywhere between 20 to 28% of LGBTQ people have a higher propensity to substance use disorder than their counterparts.
Right.
And so we would question, well, why is that? Why is it that LGBTQ people have a higher propensity? And it's because we carry all these unresolved emotions, or we internalize these ideas about ourselves that have been told to us, or we're tormented, or we have arrested development, and the list can go on to infinitum. And so that's really one of the reasons. And again, it's one of those statistics. It's one of the causes of this dilemma that I think needs greater investigation. It needs more research. It needs more money. It needs more dedication. It really needs a greater sense of urgency around how to solve this. When you think of how many teenage children, LGBTQ children, commit suicide in comparison to their counterparts. Like, this is an emergency.
It is.
This is an emergency.
Right.
Right.
Especially when you're looking at, or not especially, but equally when you're looking at one of the populations that you treat quite frequently are trans women. Right. And you put a trans woman into a mainstream treatment center, and that human being, right, when we're talking about human condition, you put that person into a group setting with a bunch of heterosexual male and female individuals, and that individual freezes and really feels, as Manny said, unsafe, unheard, not understood. And so I am just, right with Manny on the importance of when you're working with a population and you're screening someone for treatment in that population, is look at, does this person need to be in an LGBTQ specific program with an LGBTQ community? So Manny, thank you so much for doing this today. Is there anything that we want to wrap up with, because we're short on time?
2-minute warning here.
Yeah.
Is there
Manny,
anything else
any
you want to
advice?
share?
Well, I mean, I think that when people are considering treatment and it's for an LGBTQ client, I think it's really important to look at who is providing the treatment. If they say, well, we have an LGBT track, or if they say they're LGBTQ friendly, run.
That's right.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, because it's like saying, "Se habla español" in the window of a furniture store. But I think it's really important to get on the phone, ask a lot of questions, ask who is on that staff, what is their training. Yeah, I would even say, where did they go to school? Because we all know that there are universities right now that are really specializing in LGBTQ affirmative treatment, and that's a whole nother conversation. But that's what I would say. And
Manny, how does someone reach you? How do they reach you? How do they reach La Fuente?
Right. So you can always visit our website at www.lafuentehollywood.com, or they can call us at 323-464-2947. Ask for Edwin Sanchez in admissions, or just ask for admissions.
One of the most amazing admissions people in the country, by the way.
Yeah,
Edwin's amazing.
Yeah. My whole staff is just like off the hook. Really, I'm so lucky to have the dedication and the expertise that we have at La Fuente. Really, our clients have superb care, and I'm so proud of the work that they do. And I also feel like there's so much we don't know. There really is so much we don't know, and that's really what is exciting about the work. Is there's so many trans clients coming into the space and being escorted onto the property by their parents. I mean, 10 years ago,
wouldn't have been seen.
No.
Unheard of.
Oh, that's awesome.
Unheard of.
Wow.
So there's so much that to learn, and from the learning comes really being able to just provide better and better care. So that ultimately what we're really doing is we're really following our mission, and that is to really heal communities. Because when we heal our community, we heal all the communities, right? When that community over there is healed, they help heal us.
That's right. Well, thank you for all that you are and all that you do for the LGBTQ community. And thank you for being on our show. Yeah,
Manny, thanks so much. It's good to see you on the screen, and I'll talk to you on the phone tomorrow morning, I'm sure.
Yep. Thank you. And nice to meet you, Robin. I'm excited about you joining this team.
Thank you. I can't wait to come and tour your place.
Right.
One of these days.
I can't wait to come tour your place. I have not seen the new fabulous.
Oh, you have to.
Flowers
yes.
Health Institute.
Yeah.
Oh,
we can't wait
to get
out here.
Yeah. And Dr. Flowers, if they want to reach J. Flowers Health Institute, how do we do that?
You bet. Similar to the same way you reach Manny's La Fuente Hollywood Treatment Center, is you go to jflowershealth.com. That's the J. Flowers Health Institute, or you can call us at 713-783-6655. Thank you, everybody, and thank you, Manny, very much.
Talk to you next week.
Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.